So Paul, tell me about the role of SCM and Red Deer's involvement in it and your current level of involvement.
Okay.
Background.
FCM is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and it's a national body that represents over 90% of municipalities in the country. So we get together to craft policy and do advocacy work with the federal government. So our role, of course, is to be part of that national voice and to be participating on a national stage. Extremely important for us for a number of reasons. We want to make sure that we attract the right kind of infrastructure dollars here, the right policy around housing particularly, and the right economic development policy for social programs, as well as the environment. That's an upcoming issue that all municipalities are facing right now, and certainly we need national policy that would help address that. So we get together and we work on what those asks need to be with the federal government, and then we work with the members of parliament and the prime minister to see that we can get that policy into budget.
So what are the most direct benefits, economic or otherwise, for Red Deer through their involvement, Red Deer's involvement with FCM?
Well, directly would be our linkage, just to have that political voice in Ottawa and with the rest of the nation. Indirectly, it's actually financial. When you think of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities work last year, we were able to have the gas tax, the federal gas tax index. That was an FCM policy that we worked on. So that means direct benefit to this city and to every city in the country. We have that now indexed in perpetuity. So I think it's 2 or 3% a year it goes up, which is really helpful for municipalities.
And what's the difference between, as discussed at Council today, between PD money and your involvement with this national conference? How would you differentiate between the two? Obviously, they're very different.
Yeah. With FCM, I consider that an obligation. I'm representing not only our council here and the citizens of Red Deer, but also the province. Because I'm elected provincially. So I need to be at each of those 3 board meetings plus the 2 conferences, whether or not I'm whether I not want to go to those conferences with my own personal development money. I have no choice, really. I need to be there as a board member.
Okay. Well, what's the breakdown approximately? What are your costs associated with attendance at each of these events? Is 5 annually or 3?
Well, there are 5 events. There are 5 meetings. 2 of them are national events for the whole country, and 3 of them are board meetings and advocacy meetings with members of parliament. So the budget covers the travel expenses to and from accommodation, depending on which place we're in, and there's a per diem that matches the AUMA rate.
But they're all out of the province.
They're all mostly. The closest one I've attended was in Prince George, I think, but they move all across the country. So I've been in Nelson, BC, and the last one was in Thunder Bay.
What's the approximate cost for the city per meeting or conference, would you say?
It's hard to say because it depends on the airfare and so when I was I went to the sustainability conference, and that was all the way in Charlottetown, but the airfare to Charlottetown was actually quite reasonable, and the accommodations were like $90 a night, where when you go to Ottawa for the advocacy days, they can be $300 a night. So it depends in which location you're going to, how much of that budget you need to use.
How have you personally benefited from the experience of this representation?
Well, you hear the national voice. You hear from all the municipalities and your council colleagues across the country, so you get a broader perspective of what's facing the nation. So we're all facing a housing crisis right now. We're all facing an infrastructure crisis, and we're all going to be soon in the midst of an environmental crisis. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done about how we can influence the federal government so that we can be supported in our work locally.
Do you think the local level has that level of awareness, or would have it without FCM, or FCM's awareness is essential?
They would have some. Each member, I think each board member across the country would come with some perspective, but it's in the sharing of perspectives that you can bring back the best wisdom for your own council.